If you live in Dubai, this is one of the most important videos you will ever see. Okay, what I'm going to show you in this video could be the difference between you losing all of your hair or even getting a serious illness in the next 10 years or not. So what I'm going to go over today is the 5 biggest health mistakes every entrepreneur makes when they live in Dubai. And I'm going to show you how to correct those mistakes so you can have the most elite health setup possible. So this information is something that I have never shared publicly before. It's usually reserved for my private clients, but I really mean it when I say that this could save your life. And before we get into it, I'm going to give one quick disclaimer, okay? And that disclaimer is that I am going to go into a lot of detail. And the reason for that is because details add up over time. They have a compounding effect. And most people, they ignore the details and then they wonder why their hair's falling out prematurely, okay? Details are the difference between you losing your hair or getting an illness or not, okay? So if you're not ready for detail, you can click away from the video right now. This isn't for you, okay? This video is for people that want the details because they want the health results. This is what it takes to be healthy, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 most important mistakes that everyone makes. And if you're in Dubai, I guarantee you're making these mistakes right now. So the first and biggest mistake, I'm going to start with the most important one first, is that people eat low quality food. Even if you think you're eating clean and avoiding junk food, that isn't enough to prevent you from losing your hair or getting sick. Okay? You have to go further than that. And that's because our modern food supply has been compromised. So let me explain what I mean. All the food in Dubai, or most of the food in Dubai, is imported. And there are some little known downsides of imported food that no one else is going to tell you about. Okay, imported, by that I mean that food is shipped in from Australia, Asia, or America into Dubai. Okay, and in that import process, as it's shipped by plane or by boat, something happens along the way that damages the food. I'm going to tell you what that is right now. So the first thing that can happen to the food as it's imported is that it gets irradiated. It gets exposed to X-rays and other forms of radiation, okay? And then people are eating X-rayed, radiated food all day long. And they're wondering why they're getting sick or their hair's falling out or they're getting skin conditions or whatever it is, okay? The second problem with the food as it's imported is that it gets frozen, okay? And we always want to be avoiding frozen food because freezing the food, you lose significant value. The nutrients get damaged, the bacteria gets damaged, the enzymes get damaged, and the food is going to not digest so well. You're going to feel heavy in your stomach when you eat frozen food compared to non-frozen food, okay? And even if the food says it's fresh, if it's been imported on a plane or boat, it's been exposed to very close to freezing temperatures, okay? Or it's just been frozen directly, which we want to be avoiding. Now, I'm going to show you a quick study about this that most people have never heard of, but there was a study done on cats and dogs eating frozen meat. And the study showed that cats, when they only eat frozen meat, they started to get skin disorders and they became dehydrated, okay? This is a picture of my cat here eating some fresh ribeye and some fresh raw milk. So most people don't know this, okay, but it's going to have a similar effect in humans. You know, when I eat frozen food, which I never do anymore because I've learned that it's bad, it feels heavy in my stomach. It doesn't give you so much energy. It doesn't build muscle as well because the nutrients get damaged as you freeze. So you always want to be avoiding frozen food, okay? And you can see how this would compound, right? Imagine that you're just eating frozen food or X-rayed food for years and years and years. That's going to create problems. So what's the solution? I'm going to give you several things that you can do right now. So you want to try and get meat that is local and fresh. Some examples of meat, and this is a farm that I visited in Dubai, okay? There's lots of farms in the UAE. Most people never go there. I actually did myself. And you can find local camel meat, buffalo, goat chicken, any kind of red meat or white meat like chicken, you can get locally. And if it's local, then it hasn't been imported with X-rays. It's not radiated. It's not been frozen. So you can get fresh local meat. And one thing I'll say that most people don't know about is that when you eat meat that's just been slaughtered or just a few days old, it actually has far more nutrients as well. So that's another benefit of getting local meat is that you can get meat that was slaughtered the day before, for example, and it's going to have a lot more nutrients in it. So the next point is that you can get fresh seafood. So they have oysters from Dibba Bay. Dibba Bay is close by to the UAE. And when I was in Dubai, I can tell you about this, I was eating about $1,500 worth of oysters every single month. Okay, so I was going to restaurants several times per week and getting oysters. And that's what it takes really to have good health living in Dubai. And I suggest that everyone who can afford to do so does that. So oysters are very important because they're very high in minerals. Okay, minerals are a really fundamental part of health. And so they're very, very high in minerals, and you can think of them like a mineral supplement. And that's what you want to have, you know, several oysters several times per week for the best possible health results. And if you can afford it, you know, $1,500 or even more, some of you watching this, you can probably afford even more than that. And you're going to get good health results from doing that. What you don't want to do is get those oysters and eat those oysters every day that come from France, for example, because what happens? They're going to be exposed to radiation. They're probably going to be frozen or very close to freezing. It's going to compromise the nutrients in the oysters. Okay, so you want to get the fresh oysters from Dibba Bay, and you want to have as much of those as you can afford, essentially. Now, you can also get other kinds of seafood if you're into seafood from the Arabian Sea, okay? So the UAE is here, you can get it from the Arabian Sea. What you don't want to be doing is eating Japanese seafood every day because what happens? It's going to be exposed to radiation, it's going to be frozen, that's going to damage some of the food. So try and get the food and the meat specifically local. Then we have raw dairy. So raw dairy, you can try milk from any of these animals. So I personally, my preference is always buffalo milk or sheep milk because it has the most fat in it, but any of these milks are valid. So I have some private sources that I give to my clients. I cannot share those because the supply is limited with you in this video. But what I can say is that if you Google raw milk in Dubai, you're going to find several sources. You can test them out, see what works for you, and see what you like the most. You can try different sources. The quality does vary greatly. So that's the value of me having someone like me to find the sources for you, is that I can verify the quality. But if you're by yourself, you can get good results just by Googling it. So you want to try getting this milk and having this as your main source of hydration. And then we'll talk more about hydration in a moment, actually. The last thing I'll say is that when you get the milk or any liquids in general, you want to transfer to glass, okay? You don't want to keep milk or any other fluids in plastic. You want to be avoiding the chemicals such as BPA. Many studies showing how BPA given to animals will create infertility over time, and we want to be avoiding that, of course. So now let's get into the second mistake that everyone makes, and that is ignoring EMF radiation. So I have to tread very carefully with how I say this on YouTube, but just to keep it very simple, there are many sources of radiation in our modern world, whether it's Wi-Fi routers, cell towers, Bluetooth devices, AirPods, smart appliances, red light panels, infrared saunas, all of these things. They are sources of radiation. And so we want to be avoiding these things where possible. We cannot escape it because, I spend 8 hours on the computer every day. You probably spend 8 hours on the computer every day. But you can do things to mitigate it, and that is going to prevent you from having health problems. Now, what kind of issues does this cause? So in my experience, when you go into a high EMF environment, it can impact your sleep. And if you're sleeping badly, that's going to have all kinds of health effects. So you want to be optimizing EMF, especially in areas that you spend a lot of time. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing that you want to do is minimize your EMF exposure, okay? And one of the sources that is very overlooked that no one's going to talk about is actually a lot of this so-called biohacking technology. You get those kinds of wearable devices. You have those infrared hair loss caps that people wear for their skin. These things have so much radiation. If you were to measure these things, you would probably be scared from ever wearing them again. You have red light panels. They can have a lot of EMF. And then you have, even today, it's trendy somehow to use MRIs to do a health test with an MRI scan. But this has so much EMF radiation, it's absurd. Then you also have things like electric blankets. You want to be avoiding that. And I guess the key point here is that you don't need any of these things to have good health, okay? And I've proven that with all of my student results. I use none of the things on the screen here, and I still get excellent results from my students. In fact, I would say that these things on the screen will prevent you from getting good results for this exact reason that I'm talking about here, okay? So the EMF exposure from these things can be very, very, very high. Now, what else can you do other than avoid that biohacking technology? You want to turn off the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and remove the sources of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth in your life where possible. So I'll just go through these things. The number one thing is AirPods, okay? You have to be avoiding these AirPods. You cannot be wearing AirPods and watching my videos, okay? Go get yourself some wired headphones right now and stop using AirPods immediately, or any kind of wireless headphone. If you measure the AirPods, okay, this is like an EMF reader, the level of radiation coming from the AirPods is extremely high. There's even a disclaimer inside of the AirPod terms and conditions that says this is not considered safe or something like that. So do not use AirPods, okay? And get yourself some wired headphones immediately. Then you want to use Ethernet, okay? So Ethernet cable, this plugs into your Wi-Fi router, and then you can plug that into your computer. And this is going to give you, first, it's going to give you faster connection, which is always nice, but then you're going to mitigate a lot of the Wi-Fi. You're going to be able to turn off the Wi-Fi from your computer, for example, and that's going to help you reduce the amount of radiation that you're exposed to. Then you have a wired keyboard and mouse. Kind of like when you were in high school, maybe you probably use those. It's a bit old school, but I like to use them. I'm using one right now, like an old wired mouse, and I use the same with the keyboard. And this has far lower levels of radiation than the wireless ones. And that's important because you're probably spending 8 hours a day on the computer or whatever, and you want to be avoiding it where you spend a lot of time, the radiation. Another thing that is important to do in Dubai is regular grounding. So grounding is where you put your bare feet on the ground, and that will reduce the electrical voltage that you have in your body. This has been well studied. This isn't some woo-woo thing. And what you want to do ideally is spend about 45 minutes per day with your feet on the ground. Now that might sound like a long time, okay? But like I said, this is what it takes, guys. This is what it takes to have good health. And you want to spend about 45 minutes a day if you can with your feet on the ground, or as long as you can. Let's say 45 minutes is a good amount. And that's going to help you significantly with even with your inflammation levels. It can help with your hair. And you want to try and do this every day if you can. Now you can work on your phone at the same time, for example. You can do other things at the same time, take a phone call, whatever it is, with headphones when you take the phone call. And that's a way that you can fit it into a busy schedule. Most people living in Dubai, they rarely ever put their feet on the ground, okay? And then they feel kind of pressure in their head. They feel tired. They get those symptoms of poor health, okay? And then they feel like, oh, I need to travel somewhere else to feel better. And they feel better maybe because they're spending more time outside, putting their feet on the ground, things like that, okay? So grounding is fundamental. When I lived in Dubai, I chose to live on the beach for this reason, so I could have easy access to grounding every day. So now let's get into the third mistake, okay? And people aren't going to like this one, okay? I'm not going to talk about air quality because you've probably already heard that air quality in Dubai is not good. That is well known, okay? There is no denying that. But you might be living in the wrong location, okay? There is many people that live near the airport, and there are studies showing how living near an airport increases your health risk for all kinds of health conditions because of the pollution coming from all of those planes, especially Dubai, busiest airport airport or one of the busiest in the world, okay? There's a lot of toxins there. So you want to be careful with that, okay? And you might have to move, okay? You might not want to hear that, but the place that you're living might be making you bald, essentially. It might be causing your lung problems, asthma, other kinds of conditions, okay? So you might not want to hear that, but you might need to move from where you are, okay? And that's just the reality of the situation. So what else can you do? Well, something that you can do right now, and I suggest that you do this regardless of where you live, is that you want to get air purifying plants in your house, okay? Not only do these plants look very cool, you can get some nice design going on, but these plants have been proven scientifically to clean your air, okay? Alongside air purifier electronic devices, you can get a lot of plants and they're going to help you, okay? So you can take a screenshot. These are some plants which are known to help with air pollution and air quality. Take a screenshot right here. You can buy some. There's a website here that you can even buy all these plants right now. So go and spend $500, $1,000, if you can, even $2,000 on plants. Get yourself a nice aesthetic setup. And like I said, the plants can look very cool. They can even help you increase your productivity. It just creates a nicer environment, but they also clean the air, okay? So it's very important. If you live in any city, you want to be getting a lot of plants, okay? One more thing about the air quality is that it's another good reason to drink a lot of raw milk, because the raw milk is going to help protect your respiratory system. It's going to help you create mucus, which is going to protect your lungs, for example. And it's a very important food for most people to drink is some raw milk in the diet. So let's get into the fourth mistake. Drinking low quality water. People still drink very low quality water. You see all kinds of brands that people drink, and even they're drinking it often in plastic, and you do not want to be drinking these waters, okay? These are not the best ways for you to hydrate. I'm going to give you some different examples of ways to hydrate after this as well. So there's only one brand of water that I will recommend. So I'm going to give you some real source. I've never heard anyone tell you this except for me right now, which is Ferrarel water, okay? That's how you spell it right here. It's an Italian water which is naturally carbonated. The carbon in it is from a natural source. It's not synthetic like Pellegrino and these other brands. This is the only water that you should probably be drinking in Dubai if you want sparkling water at least. Okay, is this water right here. You can get it on Amazon, wherever you want to buy it. There's many places you can get it. Ferrarel water. And make sure you get glass, okay? For the reasons that we stated earlier, you want to be always getting glass water, avoiding the plastics. Even better than drinking water is actually hydrating from juices, okay? And that's what I like to do. I like to hydrate from either raw milk, which is what I'm drinking right now. So this is some sheep milk. Or from fresh juices, which is like the picture that you see on the screen here. And what I suggest that you do, most people can benefit from doing this, is that you want to get a maid. So when I was in Dubai, I had a maid. She came in my house 3 times a week, and she would make me fresh, organic cucumber juice. And what you want to do is you want to get the maid to take the cucumber, but she needs to peel it, okay? You have to peel it, and that's why I got a maid, because she spent like 2 hours every day, or every 3 times a week, just peeling cucumbers. So you want to peel the cucumbers, get yourself organic cucumbers, peel them, and get your maid to make them in a juicer. You can get this juicer called a Nama J2, okay? It's a good juicer. I've tested this one. This one is a bit more expensive. This is like 1,500 euros or almost $2,000, but this is very good. I have both of them. So get yourself a Nama J2 or an Angel juicer and get yourself fresh cucumber juice. And you can start drinking that every single day, and you're going to feel way more hydrated than you're drinking water. Even this good quality water, this is far superior, okay? So get yourself some high quality organic cucumbers. You can get them grown in the UAE, and get yourself a maid. Get her to peel those cucumbers and make you some juice. And you can drink 1 kilo of cucumbers is roughly 800 milliliters to 1 liter of water. So you can calculate it like that. You can drink 1 or 2 liters of cucumber juice a day. That's no problem. Even in the gym, I used to carry this green cucumber juice. People would look at me funny, but that's the best way to hydrate. Let's get into the fifth and final mistake here. The fifth and final mistake is that people bathe in unfiltered, low-quality water, and they go in chlorine swimming pools, okay? This is particularly important for hair loss, okay? So if you want to preserve your hair and make it nicer and keep your hair for the next 20, 30 years, this is fundamental. Let me explain a bit about what happens. When you take a hot shower like this, your skin opens up. The pores open up, and your skin is more prone to absorbing any kind of chemicals, okay? So if there's a lot of chemicals in the tap water, which there is, then your skin is going to be much more prone to absorbing those things. Again, you want to be avoiding that strongly. Chlorine pools have a great concentration of chlorine in them, and that is very, very harmful for the skin. I have seen that people who have been previously swimming a lot in chlorine swimming pools, they're much more prone to asthma. I've had that with my students, with my clients. And so you want to be avoiding those chlorine swimming pools, okay? Jacuzzis, the same thing. It even smells like chlorine in those jacuzzis. It's extremely toxic. And yes, like I said, the impact of these things can be skin problems, hair loss, all sorts of problems, asthma, etc. So here's what you can actually do about it right now. This is what you can do to protect your hair and your skin and your health. So the first thing is that you want to get 2 or 3 shower filters, okay? And this looks very autistic, and it is autistic, but that's what it takes to be healthy. So you want to install 2 or 3 shower filters next to each other, and that's going to help filter out as much as possible the chlorine, the chemicals, the heavy metals that are in the tap water. The second thing that you want to do, even with this filter, I do not recommend that you put this on your hair, okay? This water, even if it's filtered like this. The only thing that you should put on your hair, and this is what I tell my hair loss students, and I have insane testimonials for hair loss, you have to wash your hair with bottled water, okay? Preferably glass. If not, plastic is okay, and you want to get some high quality water. So in Dubai, you could be using that Ferrarel, for example, and it takes a few liters to wash your hair. And you want to be only using that on your hair if your goal is to preserve your hair. So you want to avoid chlorinated swimming pools, jacuzzis as much as possible, at least not going in them on a regular basis. In the last 5-6 years, I've been in a jacuzzi maybe 5 times, usually with a bunch of girls. Okay, that's the only time that I would ever consider going in those things. You want to use seawater to swim in rather than pools. And like I said, this is what it takes to have good hair, good skin, good health. So you can see there's a lot of details that go into this, guys, and this is what it takes. So those were the 5 biggest mistakes that almost everyone makes in Dubai. And if you fix those things, you will change your life. But that is just the start. So for anyone who wants to go all in, learn how to detoxify their body of chemicals and heavy metals, if you want to make a good investment to transform your health and your body, and you don't want to suffer with hair loss and all the consequences of poor health that everyone suffers with, that we just think is, normal part of getting older. If you want to avoid a lot of those things and you want my expertise, you want me to consult with you on your health, this is what I teach my private clients. The same way I've helped dozens of high-level entrepreneurs in the last 3 years. Then you can check the link in the description if you want to work with me. The results speak for themselves. 3 years, hundreds of students, hair loss, testosterone, hormones, energy levels, skin, digestion, all kinds of problems that I've helped people with. Check the link in the description. If you're ready, I'm here for you. So looking forward to working with you. Take care. See you soon.